So who else is gonna have that end credit song stuck in their head? Doppelganger! Alright, sorry. Let's get right into this spoiler-filled review. I'm going to be delving into each individual segment and ranking them from my favorite to my least favorite. But first, we're going to start with my overall general thoughts with the VHS 85 film. And I want to say that while there are no bad segments in this movie, there are also none that individually stand out as like great to me. Where each VHS movie, aside from Viral, has had a standout segment or two that sticks with you. And for me, VHS 85 doesn't seem to have one of those. So that kind of sucks, and I feel like maybe that could be sort of maybe that is partly, I think, maybe my fault with my hype levels for VHS 85, going back into the 80s. But I think also partly what it is that a lot of the segments in here feel too similar to each other in terms of the vibes and the tone that they brought, and they all feel like they fit in the VHS universe. It's not that. The problem is I feel like maybe they feel a little too familiar. They feel maybe a little too maybe I don't know if I want to say it feels too much like VHS. That doesn't sound right, but what I mean is that none of these segments really bring anything brand new to the table in terms of like, wow, they really went for it creatively there, or they really brought something that we've never seen before. Because a lot of these stories that we see here, while some of them do have some nice little twists, and some of them do bring a very beautiful looking and very unsettling aesthetic with the cinematography, story-wise or set-piece-wise, there's nothing that really stands out, right? Of course, with VHS 99, we literally saw some characters go to hell. With VHS 2, I mean, with the cult, and then with the alien invasion or home invasion, there were segments that really stood out. Or with Ratma and going down into the sewers, there has always been segments that have stood out. And for me, VHS 85 doesn't really have one that sticks out, that's going to stick with me forever, that I'm never ever going to forget. But that being said, I really did overall I really enjoyed my time with VHS 85, and let's just go ahead and break down the segments individually from my favorite to least favorite. So starting with David Bruckner's Total Copy, which was, if you've been a fan of VHS, the wraparound stories, the ones that tie everything together, are usually the weakest. And actually, I feel like that's the strength of VHS 85. The documentary about the scientists who find a very odd humanoid alien extraterrestrial figure. Then they're trying to communicate with it. They're showing it old VHS tapes along the way to try and get it familiar to humans, and just imprint the human condition onto this being, and the way that it sort of takes in that information and how it runs with it and how it's trying to mimic it. And then the reveal at the end, with where it's watching the jazzercise and the exercise videos at the end, and it's starting to it attacks the entire crew that's there of scientists, and forces them to copy what it's seeing on the video with, of course, the little exercise video. That was really unique. That really made me chuckle, and that was a nice little twist. And of course, the design on the creature itself was really creepy. I love the audio design too, when it was like yelling out or screaming or screeching out. That was really well done audio, and I really enjoyed the design there. And I love the I guess the backdrop there. It really reminded me a lot of like a lot of what we've been seeing on YouTube lately with like the analog horror, such as like the back rooms. It really sort of brought that aesthetic and that sort of tone and those vibes with that story. Where it's like it's almost presented as if like this is a thing that really happened, and we're just getting a glimpse into it. With of course, I loved even through the little comedic touch where the TV host of the documentary is saying after we reviewed this, we've discovered it would be irresponsible for us to show you this, and then of course it just cuts to it anyway. And I thought that was brilliant. That was hilarious. And overall, this was a really, really strong segment, and I really have no complaints about it at all. It was honestly, it really was my favorite, and I didn't expect that going in. But moving on to my next favorite, that is the one that was directed by Scott Derrickson, which was Dream Kill, and that one sort of follows this police officer, this police detective played by Freddy Rodriguez, and of course his forensic videographer played by James Ransom from, of course, you know him probably from Sinister and from It Chapter 2. I thought this was really, really, had the best performances from all of the segments in terms of the acting. Freddie Rodriguez and James Ransome did a really good job. Even Scott Derrickson's son, who played the teenager who was James Ransome's son in the segment. I'm forgetting the actor's name at the moment, but I know, of course, it's Scott Derrickson's son. I thought he even did a good job. And essentially what this one was that, this police detective is getting these tapes, and on these tapes are showing the murders that he's investigating, and he's getting them about a week before these murders happen. And he's like trying to figure out what in the world's going on here. Do we have like a time traveler killer upon us? And eventually, we find out the twist here is that, his videographer, played by James Ransome, is actually the murderer himself. And his son has been the one who's been having these dreams, and his dreams are showing what the future holds. And he's his VHS tape, or his VHS recorder, is recording these on his own. And basically he's sending them into the police station in the hopes that someone could, find some clues within the videos and try and stop these murders before they even happen. But of course that doesn't happen. There's a nice little twist where, I kind of did see this coming. I mean, even from the start, where Freddie Rodriguez's character told James Ransome in the first time that we see them, they're like, "Are you sure this house doesn't look familiar to you?" And he's like, "Why would it look familiar to me?" And that immediately, that just the way he delivered that line immediately gave it away to me that he was the killer in the end. And that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Again, when I was talking about the cinematography and the way that those films that we see, where we get the killer's first person perspective of how they're committing these crimes. Oh man, does that not take you back to Sinister, right? Of course, it's one of Scott Derrickson's best directed films, Sinister. The way those films are shot in a way, and they're directed in a way, and they're executed in a way where it makes you feel like you are watching something that you shouldn't be watching, that you have no business watching, that no one should be watching these tapes, because they're just so grisly and they're just so grotesque and evil. Really, they just feel like it makes you feel dirty to watch those segments, or those little old school VHS tape recordings. And I think that really worked though for this story, in terms of getting you to be invested into what's happening here, and hoping that the lead character of the police detective really solves this this mystery of what's going on here. And I thought that overall, again, the performances, the cinematography with the VHS tapes themselves, and of course the little twist at the end too, and the way that it all unfolds, I thought it was really well made, and a very, very, very strong segment. Unfortunately, like I said, just doesn't feel like it's gonna stick with me in the long haul. But the next segment that I want to talk about is No Wake, and this was Mike P. Nelson's story, and it was actually split into two halves, which was a little surprising, but it makes sense in the way that they decided to do this little twist. But it also, what it does in splitting in half was it created this sense to me that we were going to get like a real a tale of revenge here, and it doesn't feel like we quite got that, because essentially what happens is that in the first half, we have a group of teenagers who are on a boat, and they're on a lake, they're having a nice trip, and they're enjoying their summer or spring, and then a sniper shows up and just picks them off one by one, except for the teenagers who were actually in the boat and got in the water, and it appears that the water is somehow keeping them alive. And so when they find out, through the video recording that they were, recording at the time, that they found the license plate number to the truck of the sniper, and they say, hey, let's get some revenge. Let's go to this person. We're not going to kill them ourselves. We're gonna go do what they did to us. And that's essentially what they do. And so in the second half of this story, we find out that, they essentially get one of the kids who's at this little party going on to give them the squirt gun and have them spray the sniper. And then, of course, they call the police, and we find out that this family is they have like this weird family tradition where they go and they have to kill 7 people with a gun of some type, and that's their tradition, and they're these crazy gun fanatics. And I understand, the social commentary they want to have on that, but I just feel like, the payoff didn't feel like it was really like it matched the brutality of the first half of this story, because watching that sniper scene in the boat was really horrific, and honestly it did make me uncomfortable to a point where I was like, oh man, am I going soft? Am I just not into this? Because it just felt it just felt really wrong to watch that sniper segment, and just how evil it felt and how real I think it felt in terms of hitting close to home with, the gun crisis here in America. But then I was like, okay, you know what? Well, maybe they're setting it up for like a sweet revenge at the second half, right? Where we're gonna see these characters get their revenge themselves, but they don't even do it themselves. It's actually, they just call the police, and there's a raid on the home, and they all get killed. But the woman gets apprehended, the main teenage sniper, and then that's sort of the end. It just sort of ends, and I was like, well, it felt like there was a lot more build up that was happening, and I felt like we were gonna get a much bigger payoff. And then we didn't. So, I liked the way this segment, I liked the twist that they were trying to set up, and the way that they were, how they were trying to set it up as a revenge story, but ultimately it just didn't land the way I had hoped. But moving on from that, we have God of Death, which is from Gigi Salguero, and this one follows a earthquake that happens in a news program building. And essentially, these crew workers who come to help out the people who are buried inside, they're working with one of the cameramen who works at the station, and they're trying to get out, and they're going further down, and the further they go down, what they eventually come across is these strange artifacts from these Aztec deities. And the design on the Aztec god or warrior, whatever that was down there, was really well done. I thought, man, that dude looked and sounded intimidating. I would be crapping my pants. I'd be pissing down my leg if I was down in that situation, because the makeup and the way that they put that guy together was really scary. I really dug that part of it. Unfortunately, I feel like, again, where this sort of feels a little samey with VHS. Again, this segment worked for what it was. I just thought that it didn't really bring anything fresh to the table. And while I did dig the makeup and the FX design on the Aztec deity, I just thought that, it was just kind of there, kind of came and went. This felt like the fastest segment of all of them to me, actually. So I just feel like I didn't get to spend enough time with this segment to really appreciate it more. But, for what it was really good. It was really well made. I enjoyed it. It just didn't bring anything special to the table in terms of, like I said, something brand new to the VHS franchise. But finally, we have the last segment here, which was TKNOGD. And this was from the director Natasha Kermani. And this one, unfortunately, I felt like it just dragged. I didn't understand it. It was like this taped performance art piece about technology becoming this, like, new religion. And then the artist, was, demonstrating, this, I guess, this god that she was looking for in this virtual reality space. And, of course, she does find something evil in there. And then, of course, this evil thing comes and it rips her apart, limb by limb, and, just completely messes her up. All while she's still on stage, performing, essentially, in front of people. And, the people just don't think that it's... They don't think that it's real. They think it's just a part of the act. They think it's just a part of the show, and they just sort of clap at the end. And the cameraman who's even there with her, like, walks up to her and takes the helmet off of her, and, like, half of her face is gone, and no one's freaking out. I just feel like, I don't know, it was just sort of a weird segment, and I was just really partly lost, partly really bored with this segment, and I feel like it was pretty weak comparatively to all the other ones. And for that reason, I just kind of didn't get into it all that much. And, I felt like, with where they were setting up with, VR technology, I was like, wow, maybe we're going to get, I wish what they could have done is actually put us inside that space of the VR world, right? That could have been something fresh and different in terms of putting the audience in that VR space. That could have been cool. But, that's not the direction they decided to go with. And this is what we got, and like I said, I feel like, unfortunately, that makes it the weakest segment of the entire film. But yeah, that has been my review, my spoiler-filled review of VHS 85. Please let me know down in the comment section below, what was your favorite segment, which was your least favorite segment, and what did you think overall of VHS 85? And are you hoping that we get another one? I certainly am, because I still love these VHS films, and I really hope that we get another one, hopefully by this time next year. But anyways, if you've enjoyed what you've seen here and you want to see more, well, I hope you consider subscribing to the channel, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. But until next time, this has been Millennial Media, and I will see you all very soon.